California's energy debate is shifting fast. Governor Newsom, once a fierce critic of big oil, is now looking for ways to keep refineries open and boost in-state drilling. With two major closures looming, what does it mean for gas prices, climate goals, and consumers?
California is set to lose 17% of its refining capacity in less than 2 years, and economists warn gas prices could rise from $1.21 more per gallon to possibly over $8, depending on the forecast. Phillips 66 has already completed a phased shutdown of its Los Angeles refinery complex, permanently removing 139,000 barrels per day.
So here are the states with the lowest average prices. Oklahoma at $2.30, Colorado and Texas as well. The states with the highest average prices, California at $4.41, Hawaii and Washington.
Valero also announced it will close its Benicia refinery by April 2026, cutting another 145,000 barrels per day. Together, that's 284,000 barrels per day, disappearing from a state that already has the highest gas prices in the country. Governor Newsom's office has pushed back on the most extreme price projections while trying to explain why two major refiners chose to exit California. So what's really going on?
So the two refinery closures that everybody's been referring to really caught people's attention. And the reason being, we cannot afford to lose any more. We consume, we're the of the entire world, we're the third largest consumer of gasoline as a state.
And what does it mean for the 39 million residents who rely on this fuel supply? The turning point came in October 2024 when Phillips 66 announced it would shut down its Wilmington and Carson facilities in Los Angeles, sites that had been operating for over a century and are now closing for good. Final crude processing ended around October 16, 2025, completing the phased shutdown. The facility is set to fully wrap up by year's end. CEO Mark Lashier acknowledged the local impact, but the financial picture was clear.
And the only ones in front of us, United States of America and China. So we consume a lot of gasoline. We cannot have refineries close and limit the ability to provide fuel to Californians. So why did these two refineries get everybody's attention? That's 20% of the fuel supply of the state. So what happened is in April, the governor got interested in this topic and said, I'm worried, and Energy Commission go figure it out.
Phillips 66 reported a $908 million loss at this site in 2024 alone. When losses approach $1 billion in a single year, executives frame closure as a business necessity, not a choice. About 600 direct positions were eliminated, along with roughly 300 contractor roles. These were largely union jobs that supported households across South Los Angeles. Industry estimates suggest each refinery role supports 3 to 4 additional jobs nearby, meaning the broader economic ripple could be significant. The refinery had been producing between 70,000 and 85,000 barrels of gasoline per day, plus 40,000 to 65,000 barrels of diesel and jet fuel. Its location near the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach made it strategically valuable for imports and distribution. That advantage is now off the table. Then on April 16, 2025, Valero filed an SEC Form 8K stating its Benicia refinery, northeast of San Francisco, will stop refining by April 2026. That facility processes 145,000 barrels per day. Combined with the Phillips 66 closure, the state is set to lose 284,000 barrels per day of refining capacity. The U.S. Energy Information Administration confirmed that these two facilities represent about 17% of California's total refining capacity. The impact on gasoline is even greater, with roughly 20% of the state's in-state gasoline production affected. Valero's leadership cited California's regulatory climate as a key challenge, describing it as one of the most demanding operating environments in the country. Maintenance costs at the Benicia site were reportedly higher than at many of the company's other facilities. Industry analysts note that financial pressures had been building for years, and when two major operators chose to exit within months of each other, it signaled a broader shift in the business landscape. What sets California apart is geography and infrastructure. Energy experts often describe the state as a fuel island. There are no pipelines delivering refined gasoline into California from other U.S. refining regions. Unlike most major population centers which can receive fuel from hubs like Texas or Louisiana, California must rely largely on marine shipments for replacement supply. That means replacement fuel can take 21 days from India or up to 30 to 40 days from parts of Asia to arrive. When supply tightens, quick solutions simply are not available. California also uses a specialized gasoline blend known as CARB, short for California Reformulated Blend Stock for Oxygenate Blending. This formula is designed to reduce emissions with lower vapor pressure and strict limits on sulfur, benzene, and aromatics. Only a small number of refineries worldwide can produce gasoline that meets these specifications, mainly in South Korea, India, Singapore, and Japan. With limited global suppliers, pricing leverage can shift toward those producers. According to the California Energy Commission, the state has 13 operational refineries. After the Phillips 66 closure, that number drops to 12. Not all of them manufacture CARB-compliant gasoline, which tightens effective supply even further. A glimpse of this challenge appeared in May 2025 when temporary refinery outages led to increased imports. During that period, California brought in about 279,000 barrels per day of refined fuel, with nearly 70% coming from Asia, primarily South Korea. Based on available energy data, that translated to about 187,000 barrels per day arriving from across the Pacific. During that stretch, San Francisco gasoline prices rose to roughly $40 per barrel above Gulf Coast levels. Under typical conditions, the gap is closer to $21, meaning the differential nearly doubled. California also relied on an unusual routing strategy when imports from the Bahamas reached a record 38,000 barrels per day. This ties back to the Jones Act, a federal law requiring shipments between U.S. ports to use American-built, American-owned, and American crude vessels. While Gulf Coast refineries have ample gasoline, sending it directly to California on qualifying ships can be costly. As a result, traders sometimes route fuel through foreign ports. Each added step increases expenses, which can ultimately affect retail prices. The state's refineries have historically kept lower inventory levels than the national average to control costs. While the U.S. typically maintains about 21 to 22 days of gasoline supply, California often operates with 14 to 20 days, occasionally dropping below 13. When replacement shipments can take 30 to 40 days to arrive, limited reserves leave little flexibility during disruptions. Expanding storage or import infrastructure is not a quick fix. New facilities require extensive environmental reviews, permits, and significant capital investment. At the same time, the regulatory environment that has challenged refiners can also complicate efforts to develop large-scale import solutions. Economists and analysts are offering very different forecasts on how these refinery closures could affect gas prices, and debate has intensified. One of the higher projections comes from Michael Maisch, an associate professor at USC's Marshall School of Business. He estimates California gas prices could reach between $7.35 and $8.44 per gallon by the end of 2026, about a 75% increase from recent averages. That forecast drew strong reactions. Stanford economist Ryan Cummings published a rebuttal arguing that analysis relied on flawed assumptions about energy markets. Governor Newsom's office also pushed back, questioning the methodology and pointing to what it described as potential industry affiliations. Other research suggests a roughly $1.21 above current levels. By May 2025, projected that the Phillips 66 closure alone could raise prices by about 40 cents per gallon initially, with the total effect reaching roughly $1.21 above current levels by August 2026. Meanwhile, Stanford's Neil Mahoney, director of the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research and a former White House policy advisor, co-authored an analysis with Cummings indicating the Valero closure might have a limited effect, potentially around 15 cents per gallon. Experts project gas price increases ranging from about $1 to possibly more than $3 per gallon, with many observers expecting the final impact to fall somewhere in between. Even the lower estimates would add pressure for California drivers who already face the highest fuel costs in the country. By mid-December 2025, average regular gasoline prices in California were around $4.38 per gallon, compared with a national average near $2.92, a gap of about $1.46. While prices shift with crude oil markets, refinery activity, and seasonal demand, structural costs play a major role. California has the highest state gasoline taxes with a state excise tax of about 60 cents per gallon, plus the 18-cent federal tax. Additional fees and sales taxes bring total direct taxes to roughly 91 to 93 cents per gallon. Environmental programs, including cap and trade and the low carbon fuel standard, add further costs. Combined, these policies contribute an estimated $1.29 to $1.43 per gallon in total charges. Producing CARB-compliant gasoline also adds about 5 to 8 cents per gallon due to specialized processes. As a result, California drivers often pay more than $1 above prices in many other states, before supply constraints are even considered. The refinery closures are part of a broader shift in the state's energy landscape. In August 2024, Chevron announced it would relocate its corporate headquarters to Texas after more than a century in California, marking another significant change in the industry's presence in the state. CEO Mike Wirth pointed to state policies as a key factor, saying they increase costs, affect consumers, and discourage long-term investment. Chevron did not shut down any refineries, but relocating its headquarters after nearly 150 years sends a clear message about its strategic direction. When several major energy companies make similar moves within a short time frame, analysts see it as a sign of broader structural change. Decisions like closing facilities or relocating headquarters typically follow years of internal review and planning, meaning current announcements likely reflect long-term evaluations rather than sudden shifts. California now faces the complex task of replacing a sizable share of its refining capacity with imports. However, large-scale import infrastructure is still limited, and expanding it could take years. Remaining refineries may increase output, but they are not expected to fully offset the gap. As reliance on overseas shipments grows, the state may face added cost pressures and logistical challenges. With relatively low inventory levels and extended shipping times, the system has limited flexibility. Analysts caution that a major disruption at one of the remaining refineries could strain supply, potentially leading to temporary shortages similar to past periods of tight fuel availability in U.S. history. Arizona and Nevada are also likely to feel the impact, as both rely in part on California refineries for fuel. Each state uses specialized gasoline blends that are not easily replaced with standard U.S. supply. If imports tighten, they could find themselves competing with California for limited overseas shipments. The effects go beyond retail gasoline. Phillips 66 had been producing about 25,000 barrels of jet fuel per day, and Los Angeles International Airport, one of the busiest in the country, depends heavily on regional refining capacity. Imported jet fuel typically carries higher transportation and compliance costs. Diesel markets could also tighten, affecting trucking, agriculture, and construction, with broader cost implications across the economy. The situation has prompted concern from lawmakers across the political spectrum in California, even as they differ on causes and solutions. Some argue that regulatory costs have made refining less competitive, while others believe the long-term shift toward electric vehicles will gradually reduce reliance on traditional fuels. Governor Newsom's administration has challenged the most severe price forecasts and maintains that the state is investing in infrastructure to support increased imports while continuing its transition toward cleaner transportation options. State leaders argue that over time, the shift to electric vehicles will reduce gasoline demand. However, the refinery closure timeline moves faster than the transportation transition. Phillips 66 has already shut down, and Valero plans to close in 2026, yet California still has about 39 million residents and consumed roughly 13.4 billion gallons of gasoline in 2024. Electric vehicles are expanding, but they remain a minority of cars on the road, meaning fuel demand will not decline quickly. No major economy has recently reduced this level of refining capacity while still relying heavily on petroleum products. Some analysts believe markets will adapt. Overseas refiners could increase CARB-compliant production, import infrastructure may expand, and prices could settle at a higher but stable level. Rising fuel costs might also accelerate electric vehicle adoption, gradually easing pressure on supply. Others warn that regulatory and infrastructure hurdles could slow import expansion, increasing reliance on foreign suppliers and leaving the system sensitive to disruptions. Most forecasts suggest prices are likely to rise, with several studies indicating at least a modest increase. California drivers who already pay more than the national average may face additional costs. Regardless of perspective, several structural realities remain. 2 major refineries are closing, there are no pipelines linking California to other U.S. refining hubs, and large-scale import capacity is still developing. How the state adapts will likely be closely examined by policymakers and economists in the years ahead as California navigates the challenges of operating as a fuel island with reduced in-state refining capacity.